actually saw I think it was a post from like the UK. You know how everyone like is doing these posts, like every brand or organization, even if it's like, I don't know, Eagle Boy Pizza is like, everyone in our organization is so devastated by the loss of the Queen.
Yesterday, like, because I'm over here, obviously, in London, it was pretty funny. There was like a William Hill right next to me, so which is like the TAB essentially over here. And it's shut down, and they've got these two massive screens in the front window, and it's just like everybody at William Hill is in deep mourning and is feeling intense grief. And out of respect, we have closed this William Hill today. And then I went back the next day. So that was the day after she died. And then I went back the next day, and the first part of the sign was exactly the same. You know, we're all in intense mourning. There it says, "We are open and welcoming patrons today."
We're back.
Yeah, they got over it
pretty quickly.
And these are all the same massive corporations who not 1 month ago were celebrating like Pride Month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just...
You know, they're not incompatible, but you have to question what is their underlying ideology.
It's almost as if there isn't one. Like, it's almost as if their only ideology is profit.
What was I saying?
Yeah, sorry, Rin, you were talking about something.
Can I also say, as the news was breaking, like because I get up early for my work, and the first tweet I saw that the Queen was ill. As I went to bed, there was like that statement from Liz Truss or something that I saw on Twitter. And then when I woke up, first thing went to Twitter, and the first tweet I saw, so the news it was broken to me by Triple M Rocks Footy that said like the Queen, RIP the Queen has passed away, like it was breaking footy news.
We'll only be playing Bohemian Rhapsody today in her honour.
So Hamilton, which is ostensibly a musical about the Americans overcoming colonization and that kind of thing, and defeating the British, and
not just colonization, specifically British colonization.
Did like this full heartfelt statement on their social media about how devastated they were at the loss of the Queen, and everyone was like, "Have you watched your play? Like, have you seen your play?"
I think it's kind of like at the end of State of Origin. You know, they hate each other, but they do shake hands at the end, and I think. You know, in this case, the Americans were the Queenslanders. You know, they found a way, against all odds. But at the end of the day, mutual respect, because they are, both they both admire each other. They are both evil empires after all. So it's all water under the bridge.
That's right.
And also, just a quick note. It's funny that Triple M, funny in a kind of a bittersweet way, maybe. But funny that Triple M broke the news, because when legendary drummer for the Foo Fighters, Taylor Hawkins, passed away earlier this year, I was listening to Triple M in the car, and that's how I found out. But the difference is I couldn't think of a better way,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
The band that built that radio station, carried them on their back. The only music ever played on Triple M is the Foo Fighters. It's only
Dave Grohl is the patron saint. Yeah. So what would the appropriate one have been then? Like, what would the best medium have been to hear of the Queen's demise, do we think? Maybe just like Alan Jones or something? Like, he feels like he'd like the Queen.
One of her biggest supporters obviously was Peter Volandis. I imagine 100% Footy might have been a nice forum.
Yeah, maybe Benji's interview show. Like, could have, halfway through an interview with I don't know, maybe Nathan Brown, Eels Enforcer Nathan Brown, and then Benji's sitting there in his cargo shorts and all the graffiti behind him, and he says, "Oh, hold on a second, Nathan. I'm loving this story about the time that you were, absolutely pissed at that hotel and pissed on a patron." But we're actually getting word from from the UK.
You know what?
Yeah,
I just thought of another one.
Yeah.
He's a conservative gasbag John Laws. He's like, you'd never know him outside of Australia, but very, rich and famous.
They call him Golden Tonsils.
Yeah, Golden Tonsils.
That's actually got nothing to do with his radio ability, though, Andrew. That's completely unrelated.
Deep Throat Kang.
That is very funny. Well, there's a statue at in the QVB of like the Queen's dog, and it's voiced by John Laws. So if you walk past this statue, that's right. It's so fucking funny. It goes,
is that the
woof,
Queen's
woof,
dog?
I'm John Laws or something, and then he like gives a little
John Laws.
So I just think, imagine the whole community gathering around that statue of a dog. Is like voiced by John Laws, breaking the news. Yeah, I think
that's
that would have been
perfect. Yeah, you've nailed
very
it.
appropriate.
There was also an article, I don't know if you guys saw, like, just speaking of Australian sports connections with the Queens. I know Peter V'landys, Matty Johns, Benji Marshall, all, very well-known royalists in Australia. But there was also an article on the Daily Mail that said, the headline was basically, reunited in heaven, the Queen and Shane Warne, after months without...
I saw that.
Yeah, died months after each other, and now reunited back in heaven, which is a beautiful thought.
That's nice.
But
the king of spin and the queen of the British Empire. I mean, it's perfect.
Actually, I was gonna mock them.
Long may they reign. Oh my god!
Hell.
It was funny because I was over here, and so I was tuning into the BBC coverage when it was she was unwell and stuff, and then when the news finally came through, and it's funny, like at times like this, there's often sort of I don't know, like assumptions that you make about how things are going to work that turn out to be wrong. So like for me, for example, I had always assumed that when she died there was going to be some sort of like intervening period, but apparently at the exact moment that she died, my hall pass immediately was transferred to King Charles.
That's right. Yes,
right.
Andrew, famously, your one get out of jail free card
was the Queen, and I didn't realize that at the exact moment it would pass over to King Charles. So now my hall pass is Chuck. So
wow, it's interesting that that's a hereditary kind of rule, much like the ruler of England or whatever.
It
in
is
this day and age.
It's problematic that Andrew. I didn't realize it passes to their children. So unfortunately, mine, I think a much younger Ryan Gosling, that passes down to his 9-year-old child Eva.
Well. It might be, there are special rules for, the sovereign. So I'm not sure that it's the case for everyone.
Oh, he's just that's the royal succession kind of lines up with the royal hall pass.
Yeah, like for example, I was reading today that one rule is that after the Queen dies and all of her property is immediately transferred over to King Charles, he doesn't have to pay any inheritance tax because there's a specific law which says, if you're the sovereign, you just don't have to do that. So that's so there's different
handy.
rules.
Yeah, that's good.
True.
That's a good rule.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew, so you are in old London town at the moment, famously.
Yeah.
What's the mood been like, and have you been able to capitalize, selfishly on this in any way? Because I know you mentioned the nation's in mourning. There's, I think there's some leave periods coming up. But you're unfortunately unemployed. Not to rub it in or anything.
No. I mean, it's on any other day, it's a great thing.
But yeah, what's it been like on the ground?
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I mean, I have to say, before coming to Australia, and even before she died, actually, I guess I'd never really thought about it as a very serious thing. I didn't realize that normal people cared about the royal family at all. Like, that feels so antiquated and just crazy to me. But there'd been a few, I guess, off-color remarks that I'd made that didn't go down so well with people. Mostly around, was this what I was talking about last week about how I've been trying to get a job before she finally croaked, and the reason was because I understood that you got some extra public holidays, and so I really wanted to have a full-time job before this awful day.
Yeah, you did mention that in our chat, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my main incentive to get a job. Was I kind of had a feeling she was on the way out, and I really wanted to have a full-time contract before then, so that I could, get paid to stay home and obviously grieve, but to stay home and probably watch a lot.
How are you holding up, mate? Like it was Are You Okay Day just last week. I know this would have hit you pretty hard since moving to England. How are you doing? Just kind of a little welfare check on the pod. They say on Are You Okay Day, actually, that's the best way to do it. is
What's that?
get your friend live on a podcast, broadcast
Yeah.
to many, many people around the world, and just ask them the innermost demons.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're going to ask me about my innermost demon, so obviously I had a big multi I wanted to put down on the day, so the fact that William Hill was closed was pretty devastating for me. But other than that, I'm doing okay. I mean, obviously, it's funny. Like, I think the reaction, because we've... This is probably the most messages we've ever had on the Instagram when she died. Just
God,
people.
I was gonna say, yeah.
People saying, "Can't wait for you to roast the Queen. Can't wait, after what you did to Prince Philip. Can't wait for you to stomp on her grave and things."
Because we did. I mean, okay. To be fair, episode was it 110 or something, Nathan? When Prince Philip died, we went back and listened to that episode in kind of as a little our own private tribute to the Queen. And I will say it was mean spirited and long.
Oh yeah.
I mean
but we didn't miss either. Like it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I did have a chuckle going back to that.
Quite enjoyed going back.
So we've primed them for this, unfortunately.
But I don't like some of the negativity, around the Queen's death. Like she finally passes away. Immediately, everyone goes through her Twitter and tries to dig up, the old tweet from 2011 where she says the N-word, even though it turns out she's just quoting DMX lyrics. So, that kind of... It's kind of cheap, that kind of...
It's cheap.
thing.
It's cheap, isn't it?
It's cheap.
Yeah.
It's a bit beneath us, to be honest. So there'll be none of that this week, unfortunately.
I find it hard as well to really, for want of a better phrase, go in on the Queen right now, because from what I've seen with the Irish people and the Scottish people, I mean, there's nothing we could possibly say that could be any harsher than the things that I've seen and read on the internet from one of our friends.
I didn't realise the Scottish were getting in on it too.
We have a friend who's like a fierce Scottish
breed.
independent.
The Scottish
okay,
and
yeah.
Nathan and I, let me get the conversation up, because it was.
Well, you're really gonna read some of these live on the pod, really, because these were shocking. Even knowing what was probably gonna come out of this guy's mouth.
Basically, I said, hey mate, how are you going today? I imagine it's a big day for you. Obviously expecting, he's probably pretty stoked about all this happening. And he said, yeah, stayed up till 2:30 to make sure she was dead. My only regret is I wasn't there to finish the job myself.
Jesus. I mean, yeah.
Finish the job.
I mean, there's nothing we can say that would ever be meaner than that. I mean, in Northern Ireland, I think they were lighting fireworks in the neighbourhood.
Yeah, well, I think,
crazy.
and I think in the Republic of Ireland especially, it's been rather gleeful. I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen that footage of the football game where they're all chanting "Lizzie's in a box," which was, and that was on the night I think that she died. So at least the body was still warm. But
this
I mean,
it's
hard
a bit
to
like when George Floyd died and Dave Chappelle did that stand-up, famous stand-up routine where he was like, I'm not going to comment on it too much because the streets are speaking loud enough for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like we're kind of doing that as well, but it's way more inappropriate.
Yeah, I'm not going to...
We have no connection to it, really.
No, I just mostly don't care. But it's hard for me to feel... And obviously everything she represents is pure unadulterated evil and the British Empire. The only reason we're not thinking of them in such, angry and hateful terms these days is because they no longer have any power. But if they did, they would be out there measuring the skulls of Kenyans and things like they were not that fucking long ago. I mean, this was during her reign. They were doing that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, concentration camps, they invented them. They made that shit up. It's evil shit. And the Irish, I mean, obviously you can understand the anger there because that was literally, during her reign was the massacres and stuff. So, I'm certainly not going to, tell anyone off for not crying
we
or for
won't
making fun of her.
the Irish. I mean, we've always said that on this show.
No.
We will never wave our finger at the Irish or Scottish people.
Yeah.
I will say
Seamus
that
is one of our favourite characters, despite being
absolutely.
apparently an ugly.
Fuck ugly.
That's true.
So,
I was reading up a little bit on Prince Charles because obviously he's the next in line, and I have to say I'm a far less sympathetic figure.
Yeah,
I mean,
agreed.
Just to begin with, has one of the craziest faces on record.
Oh.
Really, just
kind of
awful.
like a mangled horse.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But with big
have you
ears
seen
somehow.
And have you seen his fingers?
His hands, man. His hands.
Oh god, yeah, the little chipolatas.
They look like someone got like one of those. You know how you make like an ice glove in like science class or whatever, where you pour like you fill a plastic glove with water. Like they're stumpy little, and they're so inflated. It's like, how are they so puffy? I guess it's the inbreeding.
Yeah,
but
they're really weird looking.
It's probably the inbreeding. I mean, it's like his body looks to me sort of like, you know, when like a fruit tree or something has started to die, and it does die at the kind of extremities first, and it's like his face and his hands are sort of rotting on the vine.
that is beautiful.
But obviously he's internally much worse.
Sure. So you'd read up on him?
So one thing I was reading about was apparently, so this is some advice that he got in his young years, because he was known as a bit of a womanizer, and obviously there was
Hard to
Diana and all that stuff. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's probably all the wealth and
No
power.
amount of money and power.
Well, yeah. So this is a quote from his, I think it's his uncle, Lord Mountbatten.
No, that is not a real name.
They're such silly people, aren't they?
They really are full. This is why I can't believe anyone takes him seriously. But anyway, Lord Mountbatten, this is advice he gave to Prince Charles when he was young. And it does kind of sum up his values, I think. In a case like yours, the man should sow his wild oats and have as many affairs as he can before settling down. But for a wife, he should choose a suitable, attractive, and sweet-charactered girl before she has met anyone else she might fall for. As in, she should be a virgin. It is disturbing for women to have experiences if they have to remain on a pedestal after marriage. Now, that was Lord Mountbatten, and then I was obviously intrigued by him. Obviously, that's a horrible thing to say. He's actually the Queen's cousin, and he was murdered by the IRA. So that's pretty awesome. They blew him up. They bombed him.
Wow.
So cool.
Is cool.
But the other thing about Charles that I had completely.
So I'm sorry. Your fact about Charles is that his cousin got blown to pieces.
These are all just interesting. They add color to the story, is what I'm saying.
He got the Lillian James Potter treatment. He's got zapped.
But that's how
did
Charles
get
survived. Charles was a little baby.
The Cruciatus bomb. But anyway, so then one of the Potiphar's wrote in and said, was talking about Charles and stuff. And I can't remember who it was now, but he probably doesn't want to be named anyway. He reminded me of the tampon incident. Do you guys remember this with Charles?
I keep seeing memes about tampons, but I don't actually know the backstory.
I don't know.
Okay. So, because this is crazy. I'm about to read you a transcript between Charles and Camilla. This is like a leaked phone call between Charles and Camilla. I think this was maybe when he was still with Diana, or maybe after they just split, but were like still married. And so this is a call he had with Camilla. And so keep in mind, while I'm reading this man is now the king. He's King Charles, okay? Charles, oh stop, I want to feel my way along you, all over you, and up and down you, and in and out. Camilla, oh, Charles, particularly in and out.
Bad start.
Charles, particularly in and out. Camilla, oh, that's just what I need at the moment. Charles, is it? ? And then Charles says, oh God, I'll just live inside your trousers or something. It would be much easier. And then Camilla says, what are you going to turn into? A pair of knickers? Both laugh. Oh, you're going to come back as a pair of knickers? And then Charles says, or God forbid, a Tampax. Just my luck.
That's kind of good shit.
Oh,
the king. He's the king.
I would say this is better than we have seen some like leaked sexts between like Australian Test captain Tim Payne.
It reminds me of that, Reardon.
But
the awkward back and forth.
I expect it from Charles and Camilla. I think our sports people should know better. Did you see Stephen Fry's tweets? after she died?
No,
can't,
I don't think
can't
so.
say I follow Stephen
This is
Fry.
literally verbatim tweet on the day she died. This is not satire.
Okay.
Oh dear.
God.
Oh my. Oh heavens. Bless my soul. Oh Lord. Heck. I don't know why I'm sobbing. Silly, really. Oh dear. Heck.
Zounds, gazooks. What the fuck?
It's the most British shit I've ever seen.
Yeah, he even types in that fumbly bumbly like
Hugh Grant
aristocratic way.
character.
Insane.
Oh my god.
I will say one more thing about the Queen. In her defense, really, and that is that undeniably she dedicated her entire life to just pretense, like just a mere facade.
Yeah.
And it's like it is impressive in a way because she's
it
not
is.
the sovereign any more than you or I or young Reardon. But she was so dedicated to like just formality and pretense.
And you love
And
manners,
it's the
Nathan.
most-
You're famously...
I do.
you're
Famously
very
love
like
manners.
passionate. Like I'm not saying listeners probably think I'm taking the piss. Nathan genuinely takes manners very seriously. He doesn't like when people when things are impolite or people aren't using their manners appropriately. It actually really gets in his grill.
100%.
Sticks in his craw.
And it's just like the most British shit ever. And really, like, I find it very funny that, like, it's just that button down, like, stiff upper lip. Like, when all the scandals hit, you know, whether it's murdering Diana or the racism towards Meghan Markle, whatever her ratbag kids were up to, that son who's a pedophile, part of Jeffrey Epstein, you know,
My
whatever was
namesake.
happening,
I was named after Prince Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. And her reaction was always to just close up shop and not say anything. And people are like, you know, if you shine a light on it and expose it, you know, the truth will set you free. And no, her approach was, let's never talk about it ever. And I fucking appreciate that because our media and weird people are obsessed with the fucking royals. And I despise them probably more than anything in the world. And so, like, I appreciate that the Queen was keeping a lid on all this shit.
That's such an interesting point because it feels like she was so ahead of her time in the sense that she, like, her form of like managing, you know, scandals and things like that. You know, back in the day, people would make an apology or they would resign or they would do whatever. But nowadays, if you look at people like Trump or somebody like Scott Morrison, for example, in Australia, like they've learnt from her, and it literally is just like do not engage. And it works, and it worked for her, and she worked that out at that level. But I think she also, I think the other thing that she did that figures like Trump and Scott Morrison potentially have learnt from is she realized that, you know, her position was not one of any real power, and that really her power was purely that of a celebrity, right? All that mattered was her celebrity status and the fact that like the royals retained some degree of mystique and celebrity, and that's exactly the same thing in you know where with figures like Trump and Morrison. I mean, there's lots of other people, obviously Boris Johnson as well. Lots of these people where it's just the charisma, it's just
ScoMo's famous charisma.
Well, but he has something, right? He's got charisma for like morons. Like morons think he's charismatic.
And yet she, like, genuinely managed to have way more dignity than any of those people. Like,
yeah,
and I
she did it
don't
better.
exactly know how she did it. Like, it's kind of impressive.
A lot of the tributes were talked highly about, you know, her restraint and her politeness and, you know, her ability to, you know, weather storms and stuff like that. And really the subtext was, man, she shut the fuck up, didn't she? She really just shut the fuck up, and we love that about her.
Which was shrewd of her, right? Like, because they wouldn't have survived if she hadn't shut the fuck up. But I find it odd that like anyone cares about her, really, because it's like if you're somebody like us who doesn't give a fuck and thinks it's crazy that there's still an actual royal family in 2022. Like there should be no overlap with like the royal family and the Kardashians existing. That shouldn't be a thing. But whatever, it is. If you're one of us, then it's like, well, of course I don't care about them, and I think like, you know, obviously they symbolize pure evil. But then if you're like a royalist and you're someone that like believes in the British Empire and stuff, it's like, well, okay, during her reign, she entirely dismantled like the colonies and everything. And obviously it's not like she didn't do that out of the goodness of her heart, but it's like, why does she have any fans? I don't really get it.
Dude, I on that, like the the craziest thing about all this to me, like, I don't have any necessary like personal grievances against the Queen, but I do have personal grievances against the wider English public. For sure. Just out of sheer embarrassment. It's just been so embarrassing to watch them carry on about this fucking dead fairy tale character. It's so cringe.
It's undignified, right?
It's which would upset her. And you see these like fully grown, like stiff upper lip, no nonsense British men being like, well, yes, it's devastating that thing. And like absolutely gutted, like in tears that this like crazy made up character is dead. And like I've found it so like it's almost like weird. Cognitive dissonance of watching these like grown ass adults in their millions like line up just to like look at her coffin, like not even like, and be like, I'm sorry, but if you feel sad that the Queen is dead, I don't want to be like tell you your feelings are wrong and stupid, but your feelings are wrong and stupid. If you're like a grown adult that's upset that the Queen died, and you're sad, that's on you. Like, you're a fucking moron. And I have no sympathy for you.
I mean, I feel
they're like, what, dude? What they? It's no different to like Harry Potter adults. Like, it's exactly the same thing. Like, but at least like they're like thing that they worship and are fucking obsessed with is charmless and inbred and genocidal, like, and boring. Like, at least the Harry Potter adults believe in something fantastical and whimsical, but it's the exact same phenomenon. And it's a whole nation that's been poisoned by this. You fucking losers. I'm sorry, English people.
It's hard to argue. It's hard to argue with that. I mean, I'm somebody that is like, I think I've spoken before on the pod, like I for some reason am quite moved by celebrity deaths. It does affect me for some reason. And so there was a part of me that was like, I know it is weird, isn't it? I don't even get it. I don't understand why. But like, I'm sad when I see that, when Shane Warne died, like I was very upset when I saw that like MF Doom died. I was like, but now everyone dies because there's so many celebrities, like every day somebody's dying. And it's anyway, point is, I kind of get the like sense of loss of, a figure, like a symbol, especially one that's been around for so long, disappearing. Like it just feels kind of momentous. And I get the feeling of like that, but then it's like,
what I liken it to a bit, Andrew?
Yeah.
It's like when the dreadful day comes where Rafael Nadal stops playing tennis.
Yeah.
That will be moving because he's been like winning championships since we were in like year 7 or 8 in high school.
Yeah.
And like the fact that he's still playing makes me feel somehow better about my life because like we turned 30 recently, but it's like, well, we're not, you feel we're really getting on, but it's like, well, but he's still playing tennis. So how old can I really be? I haven't wasted that much time. I kind of feel the same way about the Queen. She was old as fuck. And for me to be like, I'm so old while the Queen was still alive is just like, frankly, a complete lack of perspective. Now that safety net's gone.
So weird that you've pinned the way you like organize your like life events in the stages of your life is where the Queen is alive and Rafa Nadal. Like once the Queen dies,
these are the yardsticks that all of us use.
Not turning 30. Nathan felt nothing when he turned 30, but when the Queen died, the full extent of his mortality really set in.
I thought, I better pull my socks up. I'm
gonna get to work. Yeah, I know what you mean. Maybe it's partly like a nostalgia or something, but I don't know. I mean, feel however you want to feel, I guess. But I think there are definitely sadder things.
Not in front of Reed.
Not in front of me. I will not. I saw some. It was just like a grab from an Irish newspaper that was like, having a country next to you that is obsessed with the royals and the Queen is like having an adult neighbor that's really into clowns and has clown memorabilia all over their house. It's like, it's creepy and weird, and they're way too old for it.
I did see that, but I think the end of that tweet was something like, but for if you're Irish, it's like also your grandfather was murdered by a clown.
yeah.
Something like that, which is true. Like they fucking actually killed their family members and shit. Like it's not trivial. But anyway, whatever. At the end of the day, who actually gives a fuck? I find it a little hard to gleefully mock her in the way that I did with Philip, because Philip was just firstly way uglier, and secondly, just like he was worse. Like he was
Way
worse.
He was. I think Charles, unfortunately, has a lot more of Philip than Lizzie in him. Like, I'm seeing very strong resemblances.
But genetically, he has
physically.
a lot of both of them in him.
Yeah,
And
all the worst bits. Yeah. And that's kind of like
Yes.
and you got to remember that he's got a lot of both of them in him, but that's kind of like a recursive system as well, because they actually had a lot of each other in each other, because they were, of course, fucking cousins. So it's not. I mean, it's no shock that he came out looking bizarre.
He lost a parent and a child somehow the other day. So that's fascinating, scientifically speaking. Hey, did we do that pretty tastefully?
that was
That felt
tasteful.
I don't feel too bad.
I don't
about
feel
that.
that dirty. Maybe listening back, we will, but I think we might have gotten through it.
Not
And
too
in
bad.
record time, it's only been about, what, half an hour?
Nice.
Jesus.